Here's the thing that keeps people up at night when they're buying land or a house out here in southeastern Tennessee. You can research a place for months, but you can't actually know what it's going to look like in 10 years. My magic 8-ball just doesn't have that great of a track record. Things like, how quiet is the road going to stay? Is that farm next door going to become 300 homes? Will your front yard become part of the street when the city has to widen it? You're making a huge decision, and when it comes to the growth of a city like Cleveland or Chattanooga, you might feel like you're going in blind, except you're not. Somebody already wrote the answer down. Over a decade ago, in 2011, Bradley County planners made an official bet on what this place would look like today with the Bradley County Commission's Joint Strategic Plan. I wanted to know how close they got because we're looking at a new wave of growth for the area. And just last year, Bradley County put into place another very significant planning document, while Hamilton County made their own version of that same bet for the more rural parts of the county. And by the end of this, you'll know whether Bradley's original vision actually panned out and which of these two new documents, Plan Hamilton and Bradley County's Urban Growth Plan, actually looks like the place that you're wanting to live. I'm Chris Roberts, your Southeast Tennessee relocation realtor. I live here, I sell property here, and I read these documents so that you don't have to. Here's what Bradley County's planners actually predicted back in 2011. So way back in 2010, Bradley County had just under 100,000 people. And the planners' 25-year bet was that we'd hit about 131,000 by the year 2035. They also made a more specific bet that's actually more interesting. They figured that more than half of all that new growth, about 55%, wouldn't land inside of Cleveland's city limits at all, but in the unincorporated parts of the county, right around the edges. And two other things that stood out in that document that I want you to know, because at the time, these were still just scratches on paper. The planners flagged that Wacker, a major German company, was moving into Charleston and was going to significantly change the local economy. And they noted a new Amazon distribution facility was going to be coming into the county. Now, remember, in 2011, none of that had happened yet. This was just a prediction. So the real question is, did they call it or did they miss? A comprehensive plan isn't bureaucratic paperwork. It's the closest thing to an answer key for where the county is headed. Most people move somewhere and just hope it turns out fine. But you can actually go look at what the county is making a bet on. So let's check the grade. Here's what's real right now in 2026. Wacker in Charleston, totally real, fully built, operating. I've got friends that work there. It's a major employer right next door to me. And Amazon's distribution facility, also real, and I also have friends that work there. Both of those coming soon predictions from 2011 are part of everyday life today. Now, let's check the population math because this is the fun part. Back in 2010, 99,000 people were here in Bradley County. The best current estimates put our county right around 117,000 people today. That's about 18% growth since 2010. Their target was 131,000 by 2035, so if that were to march perfectly to schedule, we'd expect to be sitting somewhere closer to 119 to 120,000 people right now. So how'd they do? They weren't off by much. We're just running a little bit behind their pace, a few thousand people short of where their curve predicted, but genuinely in the neighborhood. For a 25-year prediction made in 2011, I think that's a remarkable call, don't you? The grade on this plan, mostly right in the direction, a little conservative on timing, and completely blindsided, just like everybody else on how the prices would climb. So you can trust the direction, but maybe be a little bit skeptical on the price predictions. Growth patterns are much more predictable than open markets. Now, here's the pivot. If a group of planners called this well over 15 years ago, that earns them some credibility. Which means the question worth asking now isn't what did they say back then, it's what are they saying right now and what's coming next? And it turns out this year is a genuinely big year for that question because Bradley County just redrew one of the most important lines on the map. And it's called the Urban Growth Boundary, and here's what it actually does. Tennessee state law requires every county to designate a boundary around its cities that determines where the city is legally allowed to grow through annexation. And that basically just means that land that once was ineligible for city services now is. And addresses could even be eligible for different school systems. Outside that boundary line, a city can't just absorb land into itself. Inside it, growth and annexation are expected and planned for. And this past year, Cleveland City Council, the Bradley County Commission, and the Charleston City Commission all approved a brand new version of that boundary. And here's the headline: it expands. The new growth boundary reaches out further from Cleveland's current city limits than the old one did. And what that means in plain terms, there is land that is in the unincorporated county right now, today, that has been officially marked as Cleveland's future growth path. Not a guess, not a rumor, it's an adopted legal boundary. So if you're looking at property in that outer lying ring of Cleveland, the kind of land that feels rural today, this is exactly the document that tells you whether you're buying into a place that stays rural or where future annexation and city services eventually show up. That's not a footnote, that's the whole ballgame if you care about how a piece of land might change around you. And here's the lesson: a growth boundary is a more concrete promise than a comprehensive plan's land use categories, because state law actually ties a city's annexation rights to it. Before you buy on the edge of any growing city in this region, ask whether that parcel sits inside or outside the current urban growth boundary. It's an easy question that can save you a big old surprise. Now, that's Bradley County's answer to where do we go from here. But there's a second document for the county right next door that's asking the exact same question for a completely different kind of place. Hamilton County, Chattanooga's county, adopted their own version of where do we go from here in 2025, and it's called Plan Hamilton, branded Our Communities, Our Growth. And here's what makes it different from both the Bradley County planning documents that we've already covered. It is specifically the plan for the unincorporated parts of Hamilton County. Chattanooga itself is doing a completely separate planning process. Plan Hamilton is entirely about what happens outside the city, the rural, the semi-rural communities, broken into 13 separate sub-areas so that each community gets its own specific look instead of one blanket plan for the whole county. And here's what I mean by specific. The same market study behind this whole plan breaks down projected growth by area, and it's genuinely interesting to see them side by side. Over the next 20 years, the Soddy-Daisy area is projected to see somewhere around 1,900 new single-family homes, and the Addison and Collegedale areas come in higher at around 2,000 homes. And the area that includes Birchwood and Georgetown, where my own family's farm sits, actually tops the list of any rural area in the county at nearly 2,900 new homes projected. Now, to be fair, those numbers cover the whole surrounding area, not just those specific communities by themselves, but that's still a real specific number that you can hold up against a piece of land and ask, am I in the path of that? And if you'd asked me to guess which one of these three sleepy corners of the county was projected to grow the most, Birchwood would probably not have been my first guess. And here's the part that really caught my attention about Soddy-Daisy's number specifically. A large chunk of its growth is riding on one specific piece of land around McDonald Farm. It's a 2,000-acre former dairy and cattle farm that the county bought a few years back, and the plan identifies it as a future regional opportunity area. Depending on how that build-out goes, a working farm could become one of these larger industrial and job centers in that whole corner of the county. If you're looking at land anywhere near it, that's the kind of thing that you want to know before you buy, not after. Now, before you picture bulldozers everywhere, here's the honest counterbalance. Over 90% of this same area is currently zoned agricultural, and there's almost no public sewer out there. Just one line running out from the city of Soddy-Daisy. Everything else runs on septic, and the plan sets the minimum lot size for a septic system at roughly a half an acre. So the growth is real, but it's genuinely bottlenecked by infrastructure, which means that the pace of change depends a lot on when or if sewer lines get extended out to a given area. And that's worth asking about directly if you're eyeing a specific parcel. The plan also flags specific roads for safety and capacity improvements based on real crash data. Armstrong Road and Harrison Bay Road among them, both out in that same corner of the county. So if you're looking at land that's off of a road that you don't recognize, it's worth a quick check on whether that road shows up on a list like this. It tells you whether the county already sees a problem there. And I want to be straight with you about why I care about this one specifically. I do business regularly in Soddy-Daisy. My in-laws lived in Harrison for years before they moved out to Georgetown, and my own family has a farm in Birchwood, which actually straddles the line between Hamilton and Meigs County. So when I say that this document touches ground that I know, I mean that literally. I've driven that hour out to Soddy-Daisy more times than I can count, and the drive over to Birchwood is always worth it to see these smiling faces. So here's what's really useful about putting all three of these documents side by side. Bradley's 2011 plan proved these documents are worth trusting on direction even over 15 years. Bradley's new growth boundary tells you exactly where the next wave of city expansion is legally headed. And Plan Hamilton gives you the same kind of thing, down to specific numbers and specific pieces of land like McDonald Farm for the rural edge of that county. You don't wait 12 years to find out if a plan was right. Go read the current one for the specific area that you're looking at while it's fresh, because now you've seen the proof that these documents truly mean something. And that's really the whole point of digging through all three of these. Whichever side of these county lines you're looking at, inside Cleveland's new growth boundary or out towards Charleston or over into Hamilton's rural edge towards Harrison and Soddy-Daisy, there is almost always a document like these sitting in a planning office telling you where things are headed. Most people just never think to ask for it. But I do, as part of how I try to give you the unglamorous version of what's actually happening here, not just the pretty parts, of which there are definitely plenty. If you're seriously looking at property anywhere in this region and want to know what a specific area's plan actually says about it, that's exactly the kind of digging that I like to do before I ever show a client a piece of property. So call or text me anytime right at the number that you're going to see here on the screen in front of you, and there's a link below where you can grab a free relocation guide and set up a time to talk. So next time somebody tells you that they've got this feeling about where this region's headed, you can just go check the map and be armed with the knowledge of where you can live your best life in Southeast Tennessee.